Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings just gave us yet another hint as to who might be the new big bad behind the scenes of the MCU. Stay tuned as I give you a rundown of all the hints given to us so far, along with the new implications in this film. This is NRD from IGS, and before I get to the hints in Shang-Chi, you may have noticed before that I said that this was yet another hint. Well, that's cause there have already been a few in the previous movies as well as in reveals for upcoming movies in the MCU. But we'll get to that. Now, you might be wondering or may have already guessed just who is this big bad. Well, let me tell you. It is Null. Now I know most of you might have already seen other videos about these teasers or hints, or may have even noticed them on your own, but this is for the rest of you who are still in the dark. Those who already know may want to skip to the end directly to the Shang-Chi teasers, but just in case you might not know some of these, I suggest you stick with us. As for the rest of you, let me take you on a journey.
You're going on a journey.
For all our non-comic book readers out there, y'all may be wondering just who the hell is this Null guy and what's so great about him. Well, let me tell you, Null is the god of the symbiotes. Yes, my friends, those symbiotes: Venom, Toxin, Scream, and Carnage, and the rest of them. Yes, if you thought they were bad, well, he's their dad.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Let me be brief. Basically, he's this being who existed in the void before the universe was created. When the Celestials came into this void to create the universe, Null was infuriated. These beings who had come to disturb his peace and were molding his home into something he did not like. So he created the very first symbiote in the form of a sword, which would later on come to be known as All Black, or the Necro Sword. With this sword, he would go on to decapitate one of these Celestials, who were practically gods. Many millennia later, All Black was found by this guy named Gore, who with it would come to be known as the God Butcher, which I'll explain in a bit. Later he went on to create the rest of the symbiotes, who would then rebel against him and trap him in a cage, which would later on come to be known as the symbiote home planet. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about Null, because I want to stay on track, and that's all that's relevant to this video. Okay, now on to the teasers and hints. For the very first one, we go all the way back to Thor: The Dark World, the post-credit scene where Sif and Volstagg went to this place called Nowhere, which is in fact the head of a dead Celestial. Yes, people, that Celestial. Now back then, it might have just been a happy coincidence, considering the fact that Null's existence in comics was first made known around 2018, while The Dark World came out in 2013, and Guardians of the Galaxy, which also featured this place, came out in 2014. So Null technically didn't exist back then. However, in the comics it has been confirmed that Nowhere is in fact that very head of that very Celestial that was decapitated by Null. So now whether you should consider this as a hint at Null or just another happy coincidence, I leave unto you. Just think about it. Marvel has done this before. Next, we move on to yet another Thor film, Ragnarok. In Ragnarok, the sword wielded by Hela has been confirmed to be in fact the Necro Sword. Now I know you might think this is just a coincidence, so let me show you this. First, take a look at All Black from the comics. Now take a look at Hela's swords. Notice the similarities? Now I know it wasn't actually called the Necro Sword on screen in the movie, but if you watched What If episode 2, the collector actually called it exactly that.
A necrosword, courtesy of the Asgardian goddess of death.
So maybe just like in the comics with Gore, at some point in time, Hela might have found All Black, and maybe, just maybe, that was the reason Odin banished her. Something to think about. Now the next main tease was revealed when the casting for Thor 4. Yes, yet another Thor film. Anyone noticing a pattern here? Anyway, so the casting revealed Christian Bale was going to be playing Gore, the God Butcher. This was 100% confirmation that All Black is definitely in the MCU. Now, like I promised, I'm going to drop a little light on just who exactly Gore is. Gore was born on a barren planet, living every day in starvation. He was taught to trust the gods completely, but they kept letting him down. He lost his parents when he was young, then his wife and all his children except one died. After finally he lost his last son, he lost it. He started questioning everything about the gods, and thus was exiled by his people to roam the desert alone. One day he came across two gods fighting. It was Null and another god clad in some golden armor. This god fell to the ground right before Gore. He started to ask Gore for his help, and Gore remembered all the tragedies and suffering he had gone through, and he blamed the gods. He saw All Black, which had fallen beside him and was bonding with his hand, and he took it and used it to kill this god. And then he set out to kill every god in the universe. It took the combined effort of 3 Thors from 3 different points in time to take him down. Young Thor before he got his hammer, Avenger Thor, and All-Father Thor. So if Gore is going to be in the MCU, then this is definitely a confirmation of Null. Now finally, what you've all been waiting for. The Null hints in Shang-Chi. Spoilers ahead. In Shang-Chi, it is revealed that the people of Talo have sealed away a being called the Dweller in Darkness. Now I know all the Marvel comic experts are gonna flag me down over here saying there is actually a character called the Dweller in Darkness in the comics. But in the comics, if you take an actual look at the Dweller in Darkness, we can see that he looks somewhat like an octopus and not a dragon. Now, considering that, I feel we have actually already seen the Dweller of Darkness in the MCU. I think he was that creature that was shown in episode 1 and episode 4 of What If, where a portal was opened by Red Skull and Doctor Strange, and this octopus-like creature came out. Now, if you look at the Dark Dragon in Shang-Chi and compare it with this version of Null's dragon, known as Grendel, they look almost exactly the same. So I have 2 theories on this. Either at some point in time the Dweller in Darkness came across Null and took the form of Grendel, or, and hear me out on this, what if this was actually Grendel and not the Dweller in Darkness, and the people of Talo just happened to call him the Dweller in Darkness, like they did with Aldrich Killian.
Start. I am the Mandarin.
Or there is a third theory though that I thought of, which is far out there, but there is a slight possibility considering the MCU has done this before. This theory suggests that the Dweller in Darkness and Grendel, or maybe even Null, have been combined into one character. I mean, they have done this before with the Tesseract and the Space Stone, which are actually 2 separate items in the comics. Or if you don't want to go so far back, they did it in this very movie with the Mandarin and Shang-Chi's father, who's actually Fu Manchu. And the octopus creature from What If could have just been Hive from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Though I don't really feel so strongly about this third theory. I don't feel it is plausible. I'm just putting it out there. My bets are all on the second theory, where the Dark Dragon was Grendel and the Dweller in Darkness is the thing that appeared in What If. Maybe Eternals will clear this out some more. Now you might have noticed that Grendel was an actual dragon and not a symbiote. Same with the Necro Sword. This is probably because Marvel doesn't have the rights to the symbiotes yet, because of Sony. Just like it happened with the Maximoffs, wherein it was made to look like Strucker gave them their abilities up until Disney bought Fox. And then voila, suddenly Wanda had powers all along, and Strucker just discovered them. Now speaking of Disney buying Fox, the Dweller in Darkness might actually be a future villain, considering they are introducing the multiverse and the X-Men. Now this is very important, because in the comics the Dweller in Darkness tried to destroy the entire multiverse in order to get stronger, but was defeated by the Phoenix Force. Though the multiverse did end up getting destroyed, but that's a whole other bag of worms and I'm gonna leave it at the side. So maybe Marvel is keeping both doors open. If they get Venom and the rest of the Spider-Man characters from Sony, they might go with Null, or else they'll use the Dweller in Darkness as the next big bad. I guess we just have to wait and see. Maybe it will become clear in No Way Home. But we already have both All Black and Grendel in the MCU. All we need is Venom. And then Null is a guarantee. Come on, Sony. So guys, that's the 4 hints at Null in the MCU. If you guys know of any more, or if you disagree with any of my theories or any of the info I have dropped, please leave a comment down below. If y'all agree with me about the arrival of Null in the MCU, kindly leave a like down below. Else leave a dislike and a comment if you disagree.
Let's agree to disagree.
This is NRD from IGS, signing off. Have a good day and
I'll be back.